Calisthenics are a complete and utter waste of time when it comes to exercise. As a matter of fact, they're not even exercise. Exercise must stimulate an adaptive response, an improvement in muscular strength and muscular size. Calisthenics cannot do this, first of all, because it is not intense enough. It does not recruit meaningfully fast twitch motor units, and it does not provide a deep enough or an aggressive level of muscular fatigue. So what do I mean by calisthenics? So something like jumping jack or burpee or any other silly nonsense that F45 and these box group training classes do. A lot of the reason they do these exercises in these the F45 or these group training classes is because they're easy and they're fun. So you got to look at the business model. The business model is to get people to sign up and get people to keep going, so they pay the monthly membership. If they did something that was difficult, most people wouldn't show up. If they did something that was boring, most people wouldn't show up. So they're not actually effective exercise. They're more like group recreation. And a lot of people will make the argument that, oh, well, something is better than nothing, but in this case, it's actually not. Calisthenics could, and a lot of times do, provide what I refer to as an exercise side effect. You take an individual who's done nothing for several years, a really deconditioned, overweight, under-muscled individual. If they do anything, it's going to act as a minor stimulus and a small adaptation. So that's why a lot of people see initial adaptations with something like calisthenics or group training. But the problem is it's very short-lived. It is very minor. So not only is the adaptation extremely small and very short-lived, it's actually not better than doing nothing because it is a lot of wear and tear on the joints. And a lot of these movements are done with a lot of momentum, really horrible form because they're not even taught properly. Most people will end up with an injury eventually doing calisthenic type movements. So the argument is better than nothing is actually wrong. So the best thing you can do, obviously, for exercise is not any of these, movements that involve several muscle groups. You want to choose movements that focus on a targeted muscle group. There seems to be this erroneous belief that involving a bunch of different muscle groups somehow makes the exercise more effective. But this is wrong, because the more muscle groups you involve in a movement, the less stimulus each muscle group gets. And we know that the deeper the level of muscle fatigue in a particular muscle group, the better the stimulus. So if you're lowering the intensity of effort across many muscle groups, instead of just focusing on intensely fatiguing one, it becomes less effective. This is all over the fitness industry now. Things like you combine a burpee with a push-up or an overhead press. This is absolute nonsense. So now, rather than having an effective exercise for one muscle group, you have ineffective movements for a bunch of different muscle groups. So the best way to train is a very low skill movement and focus on the targeted muscle group only. It is better to remove or drastically reduce relative involvement of other muscle groups, such as using a machine or sitting on something and bracing yourself and targeting the muscle group, because that way you can work that muscle group harder and more safely. So calisthenics are literally the polar opposite of effective exercise. They have a very poor influence on improvement in cardiovascular demand because they're not very intense. Sure, your heart rate goes up when you do them, but it's mostly due to the short muscle contractions and lack of venous return. So anyone who tells you otherwise simply has no idea what they're talking about. So there's no need to improve calisthenics in your workout for fat loss or conditioning. Definitely don't include them in your workouts for sports-related things. Simply sticking to strength training is going to give you all the benefits that calisthenics supposedly do tenfold. So if you want to learn more about the actual science behind training, like and subscribe to this channel, bell notification icon. Also visit my website, www.jvincentfitness.com. Sign up for my newsletter to get my free ebook coming out in December. If you want personal coaching from me, look at the email in the link below, and also join my Patreon.